Hey everybody, Ray Davenport, your Director of Athletics here, and today what I want to cover is the hip hinge. It is a movement that is vital for moving in the world. We need it for golf, we need it for tennis, we need it for picking things up. So we're going to break it down step by step and show you some different methods you can use to work on your form and make sure that you're doing it properly and safely in the gym. So the first method I want to show you is the floor hip hinge, and what we're going to do is use a pad or a pillow. Just place it on the floor. We're going to kneel. Now our toes are tucked under, and all I want you to do is feel like you're sitting back onto your heels and then driving your hips all the way forward, okay? So you're going to feel that tailbone tuck under. We're going to sit and we're going to drive. Now this should give you that sensation of leaning forward with a braced core and driving the hips forward so that when we come up into that tall standing position, it's that much easier. Option number 2. All you need is a resistance band. It could be any tubing that you have at home. And we're going to loop it around something that kind of anchors it. In this case, our rack here. So I'm going to thread it through once, and then I'm going to go inside that band. Okay? Again, there are other ways that you can do this. This is what I use with a lot of my clients. And we're going to walk out until we feel like that band is pulling us back. Now once I have a little forward lean, from here I can do the same exact motion we did on our kneeling on the floor one. It's going to pull my hips back as I push them, and then I'm going to drive the hips forward through that band. Okay? I'll give you the side view here in just a second. And just remember, you want to keep that weight mostly in the heels as the band pulls you back. Core stays braced, and then we just tuck the tailbone under as we press forward. Okay? Should really feel that in the glutes, activating through. Make sure that you're not going up and down. We're going back and forward. Okay? So once you've mastered that floor version, we can go to a standing version. This is another one. If the floor doesn't work for you, you can use the wall. We're going to find a blank wall, and we're going to position ourselves about a foot away from the wall. Now, our goal here to feel that hip activation and feel that proper hinge. Feet are hip width apart, and I want you to try to push that seat back towards the wall. We're going to try to tap that wall. Now, if you find that your tendency is to go up and down, you're never going to get to the wall. Okay? So challenge yourselves. You're going to feel a little bit of stretch in that hamstring as you lower down. I like to just float the hands down the front, right over the kneecaps, tap the wall, and then come all the way back up to standing. Again, practice that feeling of tucking that tailbone in. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know we work on the pelvic tilts. It's no different than that, right? Activation of the glute, activation of the core to pull the pelvis into that neutral position. Now this final movement you'll recognize if you've been to any of my classes. It is a great one for stability. It was featured in my hip and strength stability video that I encourage you to check out as well if you struggle with balance or lateral stability. It is the single leg deadlift, and it's just a really great one to practice with your body weight only. Now I have a box here. You could use a chair or a couch, and all we're going to do is use that for support, hinge back, again feeling that hip pushing back. Don't really care what you're doing with that back leg as long as that hip stays level, right? So belly button and belt buckle pointed straight to the floor. You should feel that all the way up the posterior chain there, and then we just drive back up to the top. In real time it looks like this, down and back up. I've got my eyes fixed 3 feet in front of me. Engage the hip and return to standing. Okay, once you can master that, you are opening yourself up to loading the hip hinge, which is going to be so important. So doing things like weighted deadlifts will only further your strength gains and your stability, whatever you're doing. Okay. Now once you've mastered the hip hinge using our kneeling hip hinge, our wall hip hinge, or our banded assisted hip hinge, you're ready to move on to the loaded variations of the hip hinge, and we can do things like weighted deadlifts. One of my favorites is the kettlebell deadlift because it puts us in such a good position. So you just grab any kettlebell. Doesn't really matter. I always encourage to start lighter rather than heavier. I'm going to show you the front on view, and then I'll show you the side view. And all we're going to do is position that kettlebell right between the feet. From here, I'm going to go into my hinge to pick it up and then perform that deadlift. Okay? So remember, the key is to keep the back and core strong. Feel like you're setting that kettlebell right down between the feet and driving the hips all the way through. Notice I'm not leaning back. I'm just staying solid. Get into my neutral pelvis. Boom. Pop the hips through and lower back down. Okay? And once you feel comfortable doing about 8 to 10 repetitions with a heavier kettlebell, we can go into more dynamic hip hinging. That is the kettlebell swing. One of the best moves you can do for triple hip extension and creating power through the lower body. I'll show you really quick, but again, this is an advanced level movement. Don't skip to this if you haven't previously mastered the hip hinge pattern. Okay, so kettlebell swing, feet are hip width apart. I'm going to lift that kettlebell up into position, hips are neutral. I'm going to begin the swing by taking it forward slightly, then it goes between the legs, and I just drive my hips through. The same thing as my other hip hinges, just more explosive. Never leaning back, arms are just along for the ride, and relaxing down. Important when you're doing those, we're not trying to lift with the arms. It should all be hip driven. You should feel like you're throwing that kettlebell out towards the window, and it should feel really good on the glutes and hamstrings. So give that a try, see what you think. As always, I'm here to help you get fit and stay fit. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help.